Witness for Peace is a grassroots solidarity organization based in the United States and doing work in Latin America. So we currently have active program sites in Colombia, in Cuba, in Mexico, and in Honduras. I form half of the team that's permanently on the ground in Honduras. I think that probably towards the end, maybe when we get to the Q&A, I'll want to come back and talk to y'all a little bit about some of the campaigns that we're currently working on, ways that you can be supportive of our work and the work of our partners in Honduras. For now, I just wanted to echo a lot of what we just heard about one thing we know, and part of our mission with Witness for Peace is that for people in the U.S., and especially for U.S. citizens, the effects of U.S. policy in other parts of the world are pretty obscure a lot of the time. And Witness for Peace is aimed at bridging those connections. So we'll, for example, take delegations to the country sites where we work to give people the opportunity to see U.S. policy in action, to see the effects that it has on communities, on individuals, on our partner organizations. Another way that we do this model of solidarity is by being on speakers tours like the one we're on now, where we bring one of our partner organizations from our country site to the U.S. to do these kinds of presentations. Again, so that you can have a person-to-person understanding of the effects of U.S. policy, in this case in Honduras. I think this is particularly important now. One thing that we get asked all the time as the team on the ground in Honduras, particularly since the election, is about migration, is about how to show solidarity with migrants, is to ask about the root causes of migration and that type of thing. So we have found that even for people who are trying to show solidarity with migrants, there's this persistent lack of information about what's actually caused them to come and the specificity of each situation. And so it is my great honor and pleasure that Neesa Medina from the Center for Women's Rights in Tegucigalpa joined us on this tour, where she can address some of these issues much more clearly and eloquently than I can. And so like I said, I'll try to come back a little bit at the end to talk about the campaigns we're working on. But for now, please join me in welcoming Neesa Medina from the Center for Women's Rights in Tegucigalpa.
Hi everyone, I'm Neesa Medina from Tegucigalpa, Honduras. I work at a Center for Women's Rights, which is an feminist NGO that has been around for 25 years. I've been proudly part of it for the last 8. It's the only job that I know, so I've probably been spoiled a lot. Center for Women's Rights, CDM, is an organization that currently we're working in 2 teams. We have an education and formation team. So we do work, so we conceive ourselves as an organization that is a facilitator for social movement. So the core of our action is to put our efforts and resources in order to make the social movement of Honduras stronger from a feminist perspective. That's our take on it. So we have these formation groups. We have women who are somehow organized, even they can be part of unions. They are part of student movements, organizations. They are journalists, women human rights defenders. There are, with campesino, farmers movements. So they are part of the social movement, and they are willing to be part of an 8-month or longer period of time with our program to give them the tools that they think they need. That the starting point of our work is that the first territory to conquer is our own bodies. And I think this separates pretty much what we do from other kind of formation or education process. If we understand the systemic social construct that our bodies as women are being taken for as long as we live, then we can move on and understand how is the economic structure, the politics, historically, how we've been shaped in order for serve this system. Right? And then strategies on how to do it, how to change it. The other team in CDM is advocacy and communications team. We do a lot of research. We do investigation nationwide. We do not work directly with the government. We don't take funding from the national government, neither the U.S. government. We are not doing this now, and I have never done before. Because we believe that it's, kind of an obligation to be independent from the governments, especially when you're fighting against policies that go beyond the national interest and that are backed up from foreign governments like the U.S. So we do a lot of research. We do a lot of advocacy in terms of human rights. We are constantly trying to get the UN or other international human rights organizations to echo our requests or our information in order for the government to at least be ashamed enough to give an excuse for not doing it. Sometimes they change stuff, so that's okay. That's even better, of course. But we do rely on international solidarity in order to make that happen. And the human rights committees and international network of feminists or women's rights are a crucial part in this process. We also have an observatory that was supposed to be on women's rights, but has ended up being more about violence against women. That's what I work with mainly. And the topics that we work on are mainly work, labor rights. There is a program in CDM that is in San Pedro Sula, which is the city that holds more of these textile factories called maquilas, which are well known for exploiting their employees, and the vast majority of them are women, young women. We work with sexual and reproductive rights. That's kind of our feminist flag everywhere we go. Because it is politically correct to be, for example, advocating against violence against women, but not for sexual and reproductive rights. That's more controversial, so people don't always commit to it. So it's important for feminist organizations to be constantly doing work around it. Honduras is one of the 6 countries in the world where abortion is totally criminalized in every circumstance, even if it's for saving your own life. If you undergo this unsecure procedure and you get caught, you can go up to 8 years in jail. The doctor can go as well if it was a doctor who was assisting you, or the nurse, or the person who was helping you go through it. The person who was accompanying you in that moment can go to jail too. We tried to reverse this this year. There was a discussion on, we have a new criminal code. So we thought, well, maybe this was our shot, right, to try to change it from the beginning. So they were rewriting, creating a new criminal code. So we tried to do a lot of advocacy, one-on-one meetings with the Congress members, and what most of them said was that our proposal made sense. That our proposal was to decriminalize abortion in 3 scenarios. When it's a pregnancy that was caused by a rape, when the life of the woman is threatened, are when the fetus is stillborn, so it doesn't have any chance to live. So to decriminalize those three scenarios. And most of the congressmen said, like, no, you know what, it makes sense. I can see where you're going with this, but this is an election year, and I don't want to go to a fight with the church. So their decision was to not change it, to keep it as it is. Abortion, abortion-related, mortalidad materna. Maternal mortality. The fourth cause of maternal mortality in Honduras are causes related to abortion, or procedures related to abortion. So they choose to not care because it would affect their image within the church leaders. It's actually hard. It took, we were on this for a year, like all of us, this past year, trying to get it happen. And when you get to see that they didn't care, it was about votes for them, not even about their conscience or their knowledge. Which we are not surprised, but we also could not let this opportunity pass by. I mean, we had to do everything that we could in order to make it all these possible to change. Also, Plan B, the emergency contraception pill, it's illegal. And it has been illegal for the past 8 years. This was a concession that was made after the coup that happened in 2009. The church, the heads of the Catholic Church and Evangelical Church were advocating a lot in trying to the Congress to make Plan B illegal, and they succeed. Actually, the Congress voted and made Plan B illegal, but the president at the time vetoed that law. So that was kind of in a limbo. But when the coup happened, they released the Secretary of Health released a ministerial decree saying that it was illegal, even for rape victims. So it was taken out of the rape kit. Only 1 out of every 6 rape victims managed to come forward and present a complaint. 1 out of every 6. And even if you go to report it, you don't get the medical attention, the pills that will prevent pregnancy from happening after that. And rapes are common. Every 3 hours, a complaint of rape is presented in Honduras. But as I said, only 1 out of every 6 cases manage to face all the obstacles and present this complaint, so you have a rape every 30 minutes. Homicides, femicides. A woman is killed every 16 hours. And impunity rates in both cases are above 90%. Actually, when it comes to sexual abuse, sexual crimes, the impunity rates can go up to 98%. So if you ask me, I cannot tell someone who has suffered violence, a woman who has suffered violence in Honduras, to go ahead and ask her to go to the police, because what she's getting, what is actually, she may probably be in more risk and danger by going to the police and presenting a complaint, because the police is known to be extremely corrupt. So they can easily inform the aggressor that this victim presented a complaint against him. They can tell him. And nothing will happen, because they can get away with it. If they want to kill someone, if they want to kill a woman, in 9 out of 10 cases, they can get away with it. So it's a fact well known that in Honduras, you actually can get away with murder easily. And people don't need to know exact numbers that I'm giving you to know that this is the reality of most. Violence is such a part of what we are now as a society. That violence determines, at this scale that we're seeing, violence determines how you dress in the morning, how you move around the city, what you expect of every day, even how much you can dream. Because violence restricts each time more who you are and what you thought you can do. Violence is not only having a scar on you, having evidence of violence. Violence usually looks like this. Constantly being worried all the time for you and your loved ones, day and night. We are all victims of violence, but we don't know other way. That is really sad. A couple of years ago, Honduras made international, maybe some of you heard, from 2012 to 2014, Honduras had the highest murder rate in the world. Maybe some of you heard. Okay, the title of that, it was the most dangerous country in the world, but only based on the murder rate. So the murder rate in 2012 for Honduras was, depends on who you ask, but 90 per 100,000 people. And we all knew it. We all knew it was on every 7 o'clock news that Honduras was the most violent country in the world, and we knew it. Even if people don't know the exact number, they know the murder rate is kind of like between, I don't know, a range of 5 points up or down. We know this. We know this information. Violence, murder, is announced to you on the news like it's stock auction. It's a murder rate of 90. Next year, 10 points down. Next year, 5 points up. And that is how it's announced to you. Did any of you know what the murder rate was in Syria that same year, 2012 or something? Remember, in Honduras was 90. In Syria, that same year was 4.2. And if you had to guess only in this information to figure out which country was at war, I'm pretty sure you'll guess Honduras, right? Did any of you know what was the murder rate in the US that year? Or North Carolina that year? No, right? It's not information that you are fed up every day. But that's what we were feeding up every day. Every single day. So why we weren't in the news for that? Well, for one thing, there's no oil in Honduras, so was not interested there. Demilitarization, that was the only answer for every problem in Honduras, has been financially backed up by the US forever. Militarization is not only having an army or army camps in rural areas or having more military on the street. Militarization is that notion that it is only through guns that you can achieve peace. It is the only way. That is the distorted, sordid kind of notion. But it's the one that has been financially being backed up for so many times, so many years. And mechanization, when you present this as like a blind answer to it, when you're not seeing all the other forms of discrimination, the discrimination against women, or the specifics behind discrimination against women or indigenous communities or LGBTQ groups or African Americans, you're just spreading around lethal weapons that can reinforce violence against these groups and can make it lethal. Honduras, the population of Honduras is 8 million. 8 million. Half of it are below 18 years old. So you have 4 million adults, half women, half men. There are approximately 1.5 million guns in the country. Guess who group owns and carries on guns more often, men or women? Men. So there are 1.5 million guns, let's say roughly in the hands of 2 million men. So there's a 75% chance that if your aggressor is a man, that he's carrying a gun. Or 3, because it's legal to carry on with you at all times up until 3 guns. We have 2 hands, people. But in Honduras, you can carry on 3 guns. And it used to be up to 5 guns. But they changed it, so now it's 3. Improvement, right? So guess where are these guns made? In which country?
U.S.
In the U.S. Guess where are these ammos made? These ammunition, where are they made? In the U.S. So if you somehow until now don't see a link between what's happening in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, so now you have it. Clearly, you have it. So when there are discussions, debates that are regarding the gun law here in the U.S., please take this information and take it into that debate because it's not being considered. Please do. So it's not a surprise that guns are the most used weapon when it comes to violence against women. And most of this violence are people asked me earlier today, what's the difference between, because there are many men being killed, like in Honduras. So. And yes, 90% of the cases of the killings are men and 10% women. But there are not women killing women. These are men killing men and men killing women. And getting away with it too. So how it is that this distorted notion of militarization being the response of violence against women being pushed onto us are the only answer available? I can compare it to in the 60s, 70s, there was this war against communism. So you put a communist sticker on it, and you feel free to militarize that region, that organization, that country. It was like a free pass, right, to impose the militarization. And that's what's happening now, this war on drugs. Oh, 90% of the cocaine passed through Honduras. True. So let's militarize it. And somehow, you can only put up with a lie, not forever. I mean, we get to see that the violence against women is not decreasing. And it couldn't be. How could you go to a country with such high rates of violence against women and spread guns and not improve impunity rates and expect that we buy that militarization is the answer for violence against women? We can't. You know what militarization does and what it's good for? Control. Control of territory, control of social movements, control of people. That's what militarization does. It doesn't solve the origins of violence. It doesn't solve the discrimination, everyday discrimination. Doesn't give you more justice. Doesn't make people more, I don't know, it doesn't spread solidarity or it recognizes the effort that social movement has made for so long to find alternative ways of peace building without guns. So what do women have to do to stay alive? You are constantly being a victim of violence. You cannot report it because they won't listen to you. And even if they do, they won't do anything more. And your case will remain there in a file getting dust forever. You're being threatened all the time. You have no opportunities. Honduras is the second most unequal country in the world. The first one is Haiti, in case you were wondering. So what do? You cannot trust in anyone or any institution for you to be safe. Violence changes how you think. And the responsibility now is on you to be safe. When you have a country that has abandoned the idea of solving the security issues, you are the one that's held responsible for your own safety. And we can see that in the media, for example, when a homicide happens, and the reporters go and interview, the police officer that arrived to the crime scene and ask him, what happened and why this happened? And they irresponsibly and disrespectfully said, it was this neighborhood, it was night, she was alone, she was wearing that, she has a tattoo, so there's not much we can do. So we tell the parents that look out for the kids and stay away from gangs and do sports. Thank you. That's the response. So what they're doing, they're making you responsible of your own safety. And for many women, what this means is that they are not only responsible for their own safety, but their loved ones too. And don't get me wrong, Honduras has strong, brave women. They are amazing. They truly are. But they can only put up with so much. We all have different boiling points. Any different from each and every one of them? From us. It is different. You can put up and put up with. You can move from one city to a small town and then to another small town if you do harassing more, and that doesn't solve anything. And the bullet point is different it changes from every person, but I don't know. Making the decision to leave the country is not an easy choice. It's not what you're expecting to do. They're not making the decision irresponsibly or filled with hopes and dreams and being happy about it. Women are being cornered up, and the only choice that they can get to stay alive is to leave the country. They do not want to do it. That's why we find ways to deal with it first. Moving from your house to another town, changing your kids from public schools to private, not being in the public transportation, the effort of buying a car, And they try it. They do it. They try it until there's no other choice. And in the back of our minds, it's constantly being there that every Honduran family has someone in the U.S. We all have, I don't know, distant cousin, an uncle, my grandma's in the U.S. So we all have in the back of our minds this whole time that there's a place far enough that we maybe have a chance to be safe, to feel safe again. This is a life-driven decision. These are women not giving up. It's exactly the opposite of it. Exactly the opposite. To refuse to let this violence ruin their lives. These are women who are not giving up. And these are women who know what they are facing in the journey. Once they decided, once they have reached that personal boiling point, that really changes from person to person. Women have been sexually assaulted in this journey for as long as I can remember. Early today, I was on the experience of overhearing a conversation that my grandma had with 18, 17-year-old neighborhood of us. And she was saying, her name is Darlene. So she was saying, Darlene, that, well, now that you're going, because her mother was in Texas, so my grandma was saying to her, like, well, Darlene, you should wear double pants and double belts. And this was 1994. 1994. Yeah, the U.S. World Cup and the World Cup was 1994, right? 1994, I remember. So even so many years, women have known what they face in this journey. Nothing has stopped them. You know what women do now? You can find many women in Tegucigalpa. There's a clinic that's called Ason Plaza. And you can see in that clinic women waiting to get birth control shots. You know, this one that lasts a month or 3 months. Okay. Because they are sure that they will be raped. And the fact that it's their decision to choose from staying in the country and to face that journey and possibly be raped. And to take this decision as your better choice proves how unbearable life must be to them in the country. 80% of women who undergo this journey face sexual assault. This according to Amnesty International study last year. And the sad thing is that many of the ones who make it, who can come across the border, remain invisible here. And especially now, with this new narrative that is being going around, that they are not welcome, that they are a target. I know the cases are cases in California of women who had domestic violence cases. And they're dropping the cases because they're no longer feeling safe to go to the police. Because it's the same police that go on to these raids. So again, they've been suffering violence and have no choice because they're invisible. And I believe, and many believe, and I know you believe, that they deserve better. It is not fair that they have gone through so many managed to come here and to not being able to safely go to the police and present a report on domestic violence or other violence. And don't they deserve better? We shouldn't be having this conversation, but unfortunately we have to. Because when we are thinking on migration policies, we are not taking into account how this narrative, how these policies affect the everyday life of women who are still facing gender-based violence. Because gender-based violence is not a thing, a Latin American thing. See, it's not a cultural thing from Latin America. It's a systemic abuse of discrimination. And they face this here. Honduran women are amazing. They are strong. They are life-driven. Many of them are with no choice rather to come here and pass to that journey. But many of them are also organizing within the country. And it's no coincidence that many of the social movements in Honduras right now are being led by women. Because we understand that defending our indigenous communities or African American communities and land and the river and the mountains, and to defend those who defend sexual and reproductive rights, defend the right of our own body, our right to choose, all of this can be resumed into we are defending life. We are defending life. That's the core of our work. That is why it's so important to have a national network of defensoras with human rights defenders. It is important to have a national network of defensoras, not only because defensoras are being highly targeted and murdered and criminalized, but also because we are the ones who are leading the way in making the change happen. We need to have a safe space where women that defend life, in whatever form this comes, can have a network that supports their work, recognizes their struggle, but also is aware that they face discrimination even within the social movement, even within these human rights organizations or the unions. There is discrimination against them because they are women. They are women. So this exists. And if we not address it, we cannot change. So it's important to us to have women that in this network, they can feel safe enough to say, you know what, in my organization, I've been sexually harassed. And this is supposed to be a human rights organization or a liberal organization. But we are not excluded of this discrimination, of the violence against women, just because we think we are more liberal, or because we call ourselves feminists, or because we are somehow involved in this social justice world. We are not excluded, but we need to address it. And we need to create spaces. And this is not only me talking from what happened in Honduras, this applies here too. We need to create spaces where women can go and say, my, partner of struggle, mi compañero, this director, this famous activist, or whatever, whoever it is, it doesn't deserve a special treatment because we think he's a liberal or an activist. It should be addressed as seriously as we take other forms of violence. But we need to take care of ourselves in that process as well. And in this context, in this moment, self-care is a political act. It is our bodies, the ones who are immersed in all of this struggle, in all of this fight. I used to think years ago, someone came with this idea of self-care to the organization, CDM, and I thought, self-care? That sounds like, people holding hands in a circle and singing Kumbaya. Yeah, it wasn't really my thing. So I just let it go. they invited us to be in a workshop, and I was like, no, you know what? No, I need to work. I need to do real stuff. So get out of the way and let me keep up with my work. A year later, we were in this deciding what to do a campaign. We were having a campaign on women's health. So we were having in the office this brainstorm reunion, like, what do we do it about? Should we do it about this or that, or high pressure or diabetes? I don't know. Like, we're starting to talk about, and eventually the conversation led us to, what are you taking pills for? Or what was it that did you miss a doctor's appointment, right? And and we realized, well, we went to, in our purses and take out all the pills that we were taking. And that table was full with pills. We started to see that we haven't taken vacations in years, that our work schedules included evenings and weekends, that we were sick, that we've been working nonstop since the coup, and this was 4 years later, that we were working nonstop. And we were developing like chronic behavior in our health issues. So I swallowed my words and went to the women network of human rights defensoras and said, like, hey, remember that you told me something about self-care? I think we're ready now. And we learned that it's our bodies who are in the front, and our bodies are going to suffer, and we're going to be sick, we're going to be sad, we are more propense to certain kind of problems, health problems, and psychological problems too, because of the work that we're doing. But we need to address it, because we are not that many in this. And we cannot have the luxury of lose more people because of burnout or depression or addiction. There are external threats around us that we cannot control. The killing of Berta Cáceres proved that. Berta Cáceres was an indigenous feminist, amazing Lenca woman who was murdered March last year. And she was well known in the environmental movement, indigenous movement. And somehow you think that people who are like this high profile couldn't happen anything to them. And then she was murdered. So there are external threats that we cannot control, but we should take care of ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. And it's actually selfish not to. Because if we burn out, if we are so desperate to be running out, going to change it, we need to be in this for as long as it's needed. In order for us to continue, we need to stay healthy. And this is not only about eating vegetables but actually eating on time. One of the things that we've discovered in the office is that we were working through meals, so we're not eating, and then putting everything behind, everything above ourselves. But we are the ones who are doing the work. That these bodies actually do the work. So we need to be taking care of them in order to the struggle to keep on going. And I will end with a quote of Miriam Miranda. Says that we all need to find joy in the struggle, because there's no other way that we can stand and work for the social change if we do not remember every day. I don't say that that we can be happy all day, every day. But at least one moment every day allow us to be happy and remind that there's a reason behind it. we don't have that many achievements, like these goals. Sometimes they're not tangible to us, so we don't get to celebrate that often because we're worried for so many things all the time too. But if you want to continue doing it, if you believe that this is part of who you want to be forever, you need to stay around forever. And in order for that to happen, we all need to find joy in the struggle. Thank you.
Let me just real quick before we get this, let's just all real quick do something. I want to make a pitch about the mailing list because I, as a person, don't sign up for mailing lists. I don't blame you if you don't sign up for mailing lists. So I want to talk about like some of what we use it for. It's not so we do send information about delegations, about speakers tours, that kind of thing, about what we're up to, some of the political campaigns that we're working on, things like that. In Honduras especially, although in all 4 of our program sites, we also rely on them for a lot of the direct action we do, both in Congress and in the embassy. I keep doing this, and I keep feeling a little bit guilty about using Miriam this way, but it's the reality of what our current crisis is that Miriam, whose face is above me, has currently an arrest warrant out for her and is in hiding. And so one of the things that we will use, that the Honduras team will use the mailing list for, is that I keep trying to think of ways to say this. It's not so direct, but this is it. So that when she gets arrested, she doesn't get tortured. One of the things that we'll do is send out a blast that has been effective in similar cases before from the Honduras team to people who are signed up to the mailing list, so that you all can help us put pressure on Congress and the embassy to be on the right side of these issues. So it is a little bit more direct of a way to be involved than it's not just that we're going to send you advertisements. So that's a pitch for the mailing list. I think that it will probably make more sense probably later, depending on what the questions are, for me to like really pitch the Casa de Sect, because I want to make sure we get to y'all's questions for Neesa before you forget them. So I'll talk a little bit more later, but does anybody have anything for Neesa? Yeah.
If you could elaborate on what U.S. militarization means, what is U.S. based militarization?
That's literally exactly the question that I was waiting for, so I can talk about the Casa de Sect. The U.S. provides $250 million a year in aid to Honduras, which is crazy because it's a little country. It's part of the Alliance for Prosperity, which is $750 million total to all 3 Northern Triangle countries, which are Guatemala, Salvador, and Honduras. Of that, a relatively small but a really important percentage is military and security aid. So we provide direct funding and training to, of the 7 police and military units that exist in Honduras, to 4. The way that works out ends up being kind of weird. Like, there's a group called the Cobras that are sort of riot police that we used to support, and then after the coup, they were involved in torture and disappearances and extrajudicial killings, and now we don't support them. But there's an essential absurdity to this because they're always there when the good guys that we do support are also there. So the U.S. Embassy's argument, the State Department's argument, is always that the human rights abuses that are committed by the police, the inefficiency of the police, as Neesa talked about, the impunity rate, the lack of seriousness with which the police take murder and sexual violence against women, are only going to be solved by engagement. And that the only thing, but what that engagement looks like is further militarization. Because what the U.S.'s real policies are, and they will tell you this very clearly in Honduras, there are 2 goals of U.S. policy in Honduras. One is to cut undocumented migration, and the other is to fight the war on drugs. As Neesa said, 90% of the cocaine coming from South America to North America passes through Honduras. The solution to both of those problems, as far as some parts of the embassy are concerned, is militarization. So currently pending, something that Witness has been working on from the beginning, currently pending in Congress, is a bill called H.R. 1299. Kendall has some postcards so we can do an easy way for you to help us support that. I haven't been living in the United States during the time that Donald Trump has been president, but I do understand that y'all get asked a lot more than you used to write and call your member of Congress. That's what I'm asking you to do also. H.R. 1299 is called the Berta Cáceres Human Rights in Honduras Act. It would completely cut all military and police aid from the U.S. to Honduras until very specific human rights achievements have been met, including the resolution of Berta Cáceres' murder, the dismantling of the military police, and some other stuff. It's our position as an organization that this is the only moral approach to militarization of Honduras, because we are straightforwardly paying for things like the assassinations of journalists and human rights defenders. And one thing I will say, too, about that I'm very proud of about H.R. 1299 is that COPIN, which was Berta Cáceres' organization, more or less wrote it. I'm very proud of that because it's exactly what we hope that we're doing in Honduras, is taking the demands of the people there and bringing them here, and using what connections and what voices and what privileges we have as U.S. citizens to amplify. H.R. 1299, in my view, does that. We currently have 68 co-sponsors. I know that at NC State, y'all probably come from a bunch of different congressional districts. Chances are pretty good. The further you get from Raleigh, the less likely it is that your member of Congress is on the bill already. So please, we're sending around these postcards where you just fill in whatever. But it's also, of course, equally and maybe more effective to call and to visit. We have found that the vast majority of members of Congress that we've spoken to know nothing about Honduras, know absolutely nothing. And that's very frustrating. And on the other hand, also an opportunity. Because y'all can call, y'all can send in a postcard, or y'all can visit, and say what you've heard Neesa say tonight, and it could very well be the first time your representative has ever thought about Honduras in their life. So we have an opportunity to frame it. So we can use their ignorance, maybe, to our advantage. Any questions? Also, let's get off my part and get back to Neesa if we could. Yeah.
Ever since the Central American kids came to the U.S. in the big surge, the U.S. is giving Mexico a lot more money for their southern border. That they want the country Mexico to pick them up and bring them back before they get to the U.S. Is that affecting Honduran women also? I mean, are they getting caught in the dragnet at the southern border of Mexico?
Yeah, there are, well, the amount of women that are leaving the country fleeing the country has increased, and also the ones who are being caught in Mexico has increased. The treatment that they get is appalling, at least. It is, there are several cases of torture also, and there's actually there's some work that is trying to be done in order for migrants to have a different kind of category of migrants living in Mexico. There are also more asylum cases that are being presented from Honduras to Mexico because it's been real cruel for many to travel across Mexico. So yeah.
We had a queue, and you were next.
I was just wondering what about
Contraceptive?
Yeah, you said that people went for the politicians, but then the church is, I guess, has too much power. So is there any pressure put on the church, or the church is does whatever they want?
Untouchable? Yeah. Now, let's put it this way. We know that the leaders of the Catholic and the Evangelical Church are against contraception, and now that these Because we used to have emergency contraception. We used to have Plan B before, and this was taken away from us in 2009. So yeah, look it up for your rights and how they can get away. They can be taken from you because nothing is granted. You shouldn't be taking anything for granted right now. So the thing that the leaders of these churches are, Honduras is a country where most people believe or go to the Catholic Church or the Evangelical Church. So the leader's opinion counts. We made a encuesta study, all of those. So we went and asked before we started to do our advocacy process to see what the field was like, what the opinion of the people were. And turned out the majority of the population was against the criminalization of abortion in those 3 cases. So they were with us. I mean, no one, if you ask the question, are you support the idea of a woman who's struggling for her life and chooses to have an abortion to go to jail? People will say no. People don't think that that's the majority. Evangelicals, Catholics, if they have higher education, they're probably more aware of that contraception or abortion is. But mainly people do not think that going to jail for it is a good idea. But we are not trying to change the opinions of the leaders of the churches. That's not going to happen, at least soon, let's say. But we have, within the movement that's trying to fight for these sexual and reproductive rights, there's a group of faith, women of faith, interfaith, really, which actually, it is there. I mean, we support them, but you cannot go into the church and try to change the church. I mean, we have our human rights arguments. They would say, that the church is separate from the state, so if someone is against emergency contraception or abortion, you should have human rights arguments or legal arguments, background and information. You should not impose your moral beliefs into the whole nation. So we don't try to change them, but we actually were glad to see in that study that the majority of the people, even they are Catholics or evangelical, or they neither, or it doesn't matter which political party they're part, they don't think that women should be going to jail for abortion and that they should have access to emergency contraception. So we are, not working directly with the hierarchy. I did it?
You did it. Let's try.
You have no idea how many times I've said that word wrong. This is the first time that I came out right. So yeah, like I said, we are not that many. We have limited resources. Let's use it somewhere we can actually have some changing.
So, okay, let's yes.
You're so polite.
I was wondering if you guys work with trans women, and also what's the situation for bisexual or lesbian women?
There is an organization that is called Catrachas. It is a lesbian organization in Honduras, and they have an observatory on crimes against lesbians. The situation right now is when it comes to trans women are being they face more directly and open violence. They even when the trans women that go into this journey to flee the country, there are, I was saying in another meeting, that many, the most horrible cases that I have read or to knowledge about violence within this journey come from trans women. They are being targeted and suffer so many violence from women, and the thing is, there's openly aggressions towards them that it does not have a response. We work with them. We are, as feminist organizations, they say that we are like their mother organizations, because we are feminist organizations. When they started, we started working with them at the beginning, and we're currently have a proposal of a law, like una ley integral, like it doesn't translate well, but in I don't know, comprehensive law on violence against women, and trans women are part of it. So we are trying to, like, below the table to put that that they are women, that we consider them women. They consider themselves women, which is the important aspect to it, and a law that considers, what was it again? The concept? A comprehensive law of violence against women should include them too. So they are included in that proposal. That's what we are trying now. That law is not going to be discussed in the Congress until next year. And the reason behind that is because we don't want to present it before the elections, in case any politician comes around and say, like, hey, I approve it, or I'm fighting for it, and they can take credit for it, or try to change a letter. They can't. We're not allowing it. So if that is going to see the integrity of the law has a shot of pass, it's not going to happen before the election. So we need to see what happens next.
Did you give up?
Man, I could ask questions all night. I was wondering, you had stated that the Centro was working on conflict resolution strategies to reduce violence, or what was the standard plan to reduce violence that doesn't involve like self-defense committees or something of that sort? That more looks at peaceful resolution.
We don't work in conflict, resolving conflict, mediations, and all that. We work with defensoras. That's how we see ourselves helping. And there are 15 of us. We cannot cover everything. We don't try to. But in violence against women, we used to have one-on-one work with survivors of violence. We used to have, we took on legal cases, we had therapies, work groups with them, until it was not longer safe. Not for us, not for them, not for the organization. So we couldn't. There's a lack of refugios? Shelters. There are not enough shelters by any means in Honduras. At any given time, in all the country, there can only be 112 women in shelters. 112. And some of them don't allow you to go in the shelter if the aggressor that you're running from has somehow links with organized crime or gangs, which is all. And we understand them. They cannot, because they feel that they put in danger and at risk other women that are in the shelter. So, but where do these women go? So our take on it is building networks of women who know their rights, who know how to defend others, not to self-defend tactics but try to work around the notion of solidarity and women helping women, which is actually what counts when you cannot trust the government or the institutions. So yeah, defensoras. How can we have a stronger network of women defending women, but also making sure that they are safe?
Do we have any more?
I hope in the next few months it dates for delegation to Colombia. I've led 60 delegations over the years. I'm working with Congress to produce these. And it's a wonderful experience to go to these, to go to Cuba or Colombia. And if you're interested in going to Honduras, I'll be looking for folks. We don't have to date yet. Hopefully this week or next week. We haven't had a delegation from our region to Honduras yet, and we really need to have people with first-hand experience. So we'd love to join us.
Well, you guys think about the Me Too kind of phenomenon that's happening right now. Think about what's happening in Honduras as well. You know, as you see people reflecting on experiences of sexual violence and the links between sexual violence and other forms of violence, particularly gun-related violence. Think about Honduras. Keep Honduras in your thoughts as well. And think about the relationship that the U.S. has with what's happening there. And not just because of the migration that happens from people in Honduras to the U.S., but the impacts that our decisions make and our lack of decisions make. So when we are inactive and intervening in situations like this, we impact the situation deeper as well. So just keep those things in mind as you move forward and kind of reflect on this talk.
And if I just tag onto that real quick too, especially for those of you who are students, when you're doing research, when you're writing papers, think about using Honduran case studies. If you're professors, think about using Honduran case studies in your research. There's such a lack of good information about Honduras in English. And it is, I mean, I'm not joking when I say if you write a paper about Honduras, it might be the most interesting thing about Honduras in English that year. I'm not joking. So, like, one of the ways to visibilize the struggle there is to make more information available in English. And that sucks, but it's true. And so, please, like in your own studies, this is what you can do while you're just living your life at NC State, is you can include Honduras in your research and in your projects. And so, yeah, please keep that in mind.
Okay, I want to thank our speaker, and on behalf of Interdisciplinary Studies and Anthropology and Sociology, thanks for coming to campus.
If you have a postcard and you would like to leave it with us so that Gail can mail it off, feel free to leave it with Nicola or Gail by the door, or just on the front row of
That was fun.
What was our Facebook link?
Witness for Southeast.
Oh, you do?
So if you just search for that, or